don't have much to say about it because I don't believe that Jim Jones believes that he's a better rapper than Nas.
When Jim Jones hopped on the mic and said he was better than Nas, it didn't just sound like confidence. It felt like a spark that lit up years of buried tension, shade, and real talk about his place in the game.
Smoke, right?
Yeah.
Were you smoking when you said you better than Nas?
I might have been a little bit. Well, as far as, let's get this right. I'm way more influential than Nas, and I don't care what...
Let's be honest. Hip-hop never truly crowned Jim Jones like it did his peers, and that's the raw truth. No shots at Jim, but lyrically, he ain't even close. This wasn't some wild rant. It was a calm, laid-back interview. Jim was chilling across from Angie Martinez, talking legacy, grind, music. Then, out of nowhere, boom, he says, "I rap better than Nas." No laugh, no smirk, straight face. Angie blinked hard. The room went quiet. And the second that clip hit the net, it blew up like crazy. Now, Jim's always talked big. That's part of his vibe. He's never been shy about claiming his spot. But saying you rap better than Nas? That's next level bold. Nas ain't just a rapper, he's a walking rap museum. The kid who dropped Illmatic at 19. The guy who's been quoted in classrooms, courtrooms, and ciphers for decades. So yeah, Jim's words hit a nerve, a deep one. Social media caught fire instantly. Memes started flying, hot takes everywhere, but it wasn't just noise. The culture itself started reacting. Real ones chimed in. N.R.E. on his podcast. Charlemagne called it a reach. Fat Joe gave that for real look, and even Jadakiss added his thoughts. Nobody threw harsh shots, but the vibe was clear. Jim, stop playing. And let's be clear, it wasn't hate. This was hip-hop protecting its legacy. In this game, respect don't come from just being loud. It comes from classics, bars, and real impact. Jim's got moments. We Fly High, the early Dipset anthems. But when we're talking bars, Jim's known more for his energy and swagger than deep lyrics. That's not shade. That's just how fans and critics been calling it for years. To be fair, Jim did try to walk it back later. Said he wasn't dissing Nas, just feeling confident in how far he's come as an artist. But by then, that clip had a whole life of its own. And here's what made it sting even worse. It didn't just feel like a random comment. It felt like proof to some people. Proof that Jim's been talking big without the discography to match. That's how it came off to a lot of folks. Barbershop debates fired up, YouTube reactions dropped, fans went back, dissecting his verses, comparing albums. The real convo wasn't whether Jim had hits. It was, did the industry ever see Jim as a real lyricist? Or just the Dipset hype man, yelling ad-libs while Cam and Jules dropped bars? Some said it was pure ego. Others felt it was Jim, finally begging for the respect he thinks he never got. Either way, the culture responded, and it hit hard. And this time, it wasn't outsiders trolling him. It was his own city, his peers, folks from the same cloth. And that silence from certain names, that silence said it all. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just about that viral clip. It was what came next. When people who were actually around back in the Dipset glory days, when Harlem was running the streets, started speaking up, that's when the story shifted. Because Jim's struggle wasn't just about bars. It was about respect. And here's the real raw part. In hip-hop, loyalty means everything. Especially when you come out of Harlem, where your rep is gold. And Jim, his history with Cameron and Mahe? Straight messy. Fans remember. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, Dipset looked unbeatable. Cam, Jim, and Jules were dripped in style, oozing confidence, and changing how a whole generation talked and dressed. But even in those early days, let's be real, Jim was never seen as the bars guy. He was the one yelling in the back, setting the vibe, but not really spitting fire. That Hot 97 interview? Straight heat. Jim and Maasai went head-to-head on air, throwing jabs about Harlem roots, loyalty, and who really held the crown. Maasai didn't hold back. He called Jim out, told him flat out, "You don't rep Harlem like that." It wasn't just radio beef. It peeled back layers of a deeper fracture that had been bubbling for years. And it didn't stop there. Cameron, the one who brought Jim into the rap world, started pulling away too. Their fallout hit the public like a tidal wave. Cam even clowned Jim, saying he had identity issues and was trying to rewrite his spot in Dipset history. To fans, it felt like Jim was stuck in a loop, forever chasing validation, trying to prove he wasn't just a background player in a flashy Harlem trio. Then came the Jada moment. Jadakiss checked him for dropping Styles P's name in a track. That wasn't just a diss, it was a warning. In New York, certain names carry weight, and if you're gonna speak on them, your resume better be airtight. That shook folks. Because in this culture, when your peers ain't riding for you, the streets notice. Jim and Cam may be cool now, on the surface, but that weird energy still lingers. And when your day ones hesitate to go all in for you, that says a lot. But here's the truth. It was never just about who had the best bars. It was about who the streets believed in. And when Jim started cutting ties with the same people who helped build him, the streets didn't look the other way. They turned their backs too. And just when things couldn't get messier, boom! He crossed paths with someone who really didn't care about rap beef or mixtape history. Someone with nothing to lose. That man, Ronald Raw Diggs Heron. If you were outside during the late 2000s and early 2010s, you already know. Raw Diggs wasn't playing industry games. He wasn't a rapper trying to be tough. He was the real thing, a convicted kingpin, alleged street enforcer, the kind of guy who once said he'd rather go out like Nino than come home like Sammy. He didn't chase clout, he was the clout. So when Jim Jones rolled up to a Brooklyn block function expecting love and recognition, yeah, Diggs wasn't impressed. Not by the iced out chains, not by the Dipset history, not even by the set he repped. According to multiple street accounts and some deep dive exposés, Diggs straight up pressed Jim in front of everyone. No punches, no guns, just raw, uncomfortable truth. He looked Jim in the face and basically said, "You're not that dude out here." No yelling, no chaos, just cold silence. And that silence was louder than a slap. What made it hit even harder? Diggs was certified, his name rang out. So when he called Jim out and Jim didn't stand tall, when he just faded out the spot without saying much, that moment stuck. People started whispering, then talking loud. Fans online called it street myth. But folks who really understood how the streets work, they knew that moment meant something. This wasn't about rap anymore. This was about survival, about authenticity, about respect. Jim had always sprinkled street talk in his lyrics. He shouted out OGs, wore red proudly, leaned heavy into the Dipset Bloods connection. But in that one moment, all that rep started to crumble. Because if you scream real and the real ones stay silent, that's when the rep dies out. Jim never addressed it, never denied it, never pushed back. That whole Raw Diggs episode just hovered over him, heavy like a dark cloud. And from that point on, people started looking at him differently. If Jim Jones got bruised in the Dipset fallout and got checked in the streets by Raw Diggs, what 50 Cent did next? That was straight up public humiliation. And the worst part? 50 didn't even take it personal. To him, it was just another round of digital target practice. See, Jim and 50 weren't always enemies. There was a time they showed each other mutual respect, on the surface at least. They were both repping heavy, throwing around street credibility, chasing bags, and riding hard for the independent grind. But once Jim started airing out his own people, first Maisi, then Cam, and then flexing about his numbers, yeah, that flipped the switch. Because in the 50s world, if you start talking stats, you better show receipts. And Jim didn't. When Jim dropped his El Capo album, he was hoping for applause. What he got? Roasted. 50 jumped on Instagram like it was comedy night. He clowned Jim for weeks. One post showed Jim's sales report, barely 5 figures, and the caption? Vicious. 50 wasn't done there. He dug even deeper, bringing up that wiretap scandal. Yeah, that wiretap. The one where federal paperwork linked Jim to a phone call with Tekashi 6991 and Mel Murda. No charges, no arrest. But perception? Crushed. 50 knew how to move. He didn't have to spell it out. He threw shade with sniper accuracy, hinting that Jim was talking both sides. Then he let off an IG post calling him a dry snitch, followed by a flood of laughing emojis. Trolling is an art form to 50. But to Jim, that was a straight-up PR disaster. Jim tried to keep it cool, laughed it off, called 50 a clown. But the damage was done. Because once someone like 50 clowns you publicly and the memes start rolling, the internet don't let go. And get this, 50 didn't even bother dropping a diss track. He didn't have to. A couple memes, some shady captions, and boom, Jim Jones was trending for all the wrong reasons. No one was talking about El Capo, the rapper. They were laughing at Jim, the punchline. The guy who once called himself Capo now looked like he had no army left. The disrespect wasn't just online, It was loud in the culture. And worst of all, Jim had no way to clap back strong enough. This wasn't about rap beef anymore, this was about respect. And when 50 made Jim look goofy on a massive stage, the crowd didn't just boo, they laughed. For Jim, that silence from his own corner might have been the loudest moment of them all. By then, Jim wasn't fighting to earn respect, he was chasing it. After all those years of playing second string in Dipset, catching L's on interviews and turning into a meme thanks to 50, Jim needed something big to flip the narrative, but instead of a spark, he threw gasoline on the whole situation. In yet another sit-down with Angie Martinez, Jim hit the culture with a line that sent shockwaves. "I'm better than Nas. Ain't nobody bumping Nas in the streets like that." The internet froze. Twitter exploded. Hip-hop fans were left shocked, offended, and confused, sometimes all at once. Better than Nas? The same Nas who dropped Illmatic, It Was Written, Stillmatic, the King's Disease trilogy, and a Grammy decades into the game? Come on! That was like walking into a hall of legends and yelling, "I'm the GOAT," with no plaque on the wall. Fat Joe, Jadakiss, even Noor, all dudes who came up in Jim's own circles, had to step in and set things straight. Even Noor, who's shown Jim plenty of love over the years, hopped on Drink Champs and gently shut it down. We love Jim, but that ain't even a conversation, bro. Because this wasn't about hits anymore. It was about legacy. Nas had built an empire. He was a blueprint, a symbol, a bridge across generations. And Jim? Even Dipset's biggest supporters had to look away. When your own fans start saying, "Yeah, nah, that's tough," that says it all. And to make matters worse, Nas was on fire. He had just wrapped the King's Disease trilogy, 3 projects praised for lyrics, wisdom, and timeless energy. Meanwhile, Jim was still pushing gritty street tapes with rollout strategies that felt stuck in 2007. But the wildest part? Jim didn't back down. No walking it back. No clarification. He stood on it. Said it was about relevance, the streets, who people were really listening to. And that right there exposed the gap, because Jim's streets weren't hip-hop's world anymore. The culture isn't just the corner anymore. It's global, and globally, Nas is a titan. Jim's comments didn't sound bold. They sounded thirsty, like someone yelling to be heard at a party that already moved on. Because Nas ain't fighting for his seat. He's already sitting at the table. And Jim, 20 years deep, still trying to find his chair. For a lot of fans, this was the moment it all clicked. Jim Jones didn't really get the kind of respect he was chasing. Because in hip-hop, you don't ask for flowers. You drop such undeniable heat that the culture hands them to you without hesitation. And when even your own circle starts backing away, that says more than any bar ever could. See, statements like, "I'm better than Nas," don't just shake the internet. They shake the room you're in. Because in this game, it's not just about how loud you talk. It's about who's still standing behind you when you talk like that. And for Jim, those numbers started to shrink. That kind of support doesn't vanish overnight. You could trace the cracks way back to the early 2000s. But the real unraveling didn't hit full speed until Mari stepped back into the mix. Mahe wasn't just a random voice. He was there before Dipset blew up. He saw Jim and Cam back when Harlem was street corners, not stage lights. So when Mahe started popping up on podcasts, speaking on Cam and checking Jim's energy, it landed different. This wasn't an outsider calling out clout chasing. This was family calling foul. Jim tried to push back, but the vibe? Way off. This wasn't some cool disagreement. It felt like old family drama spilling into public view. Then came the resurfaced Hot 97 tape from 2004. Jim, Mechi, and Cam arguing live on air. No script, no filters, just pure Harlem friction with hot mics. And listening to that old tape now, it's clear. Those relationships had been strained for years. The unity we saw in public? A mask. Behind it, mess. As Jim kept pushing harder for solo shine, doing more interviews, more online flexing, more let me explain moments, Cam wasn't echoing any of it. He wasn't showing up in the clips, wasn't riding with the movement. In fact, he looked deliberately absent. And when Cam did respond, it was cold, dismissive, sarcastic. The kind of dry shade that said, whatever Jim's on, that's his lane now. And it didn't stop with Cam. Styles P, another heavyweight in the NYC rap scene, didn't let Jim skate either. Jim threw his name into an online debate, and Styles snapped back quick. Let it be known that real respect comes from consistency, honor, and staying clear of the noise. Not from trying to force a moment online. The energy shift was real. Jim didn't look like a leader anymore. He looked alone. Meanwhile, Cam had evolved. He was building his brand through podcasts, smart business moves. Masse found a whole new lane as the preacher turned podcaster. Even Jules Santana, who stayed quiet, kept his distance from all the back and forth. But Jim? He was still circling the block, replaying old Dipset history, defending timelines, and trying to reframe his place in it all. And the more he talked, the more people seemed to stop listening. In a culture that thrives off unity, G-Unit, Wu-Tang, Outkast, and yeah, Dipset too, crew visibility matters. And when the crew starts fading from your frame, it's loud. Jim always had to fight harder than the rest for recognition. But somewhere along the way, the hustle stopped looking like hunger and started looking like desperation. After all the interviews, the albums, the viral moments, one thing still haunted him, that respect issue. Not because he didn't work. Jim grinded harder than most. He was always there, always talking, always pushing a new angle. But respect in this game, it don't come from talk, it comes from foundation. And when fans looked close, they saw a disconnect. The energy Jim gave off in interviews and bars didn't match what they saw play out in real time. And nowhere was that clearer than in that Raw Diggs moment. It didn't go viral. It wasn't chopped into podcast clips or radio debates, but people who were there, they never forgot. Raw Diggs pulled up on Jim, quiet, calm, face to face, no yelling, no flexing, just energy. And Jim, for once, didn't say a word, no bravado, no pushback, just silence. And that silence, louder than any diss track, because that's the thing with street presence. You can't fake it. It's either in you or it's not. And in that moment, Jim didn't look like the guy he'd been portraying. No fight, no denial, just a gap between the image and the reality. And in this culture, word travels fast, even when it's whispered. Jim's problem wasn't just one bad headline, it was a pattern. Bold claims, like saying he was better than Nas, followed by corrections from the culture, from fans, from peers. Public fallouts with Cam, Masse, and others who helped make his name. And a street rep that couldn't survive a real test. So when you add it all up, the interviews, the back and forths, the myth versus the man, you get why hip-hop never truly gave Jim Jones that respect he's been chasing. To be clear, it wasn't hate. Jim worked, he showed up, he lasted. But respect? That's not about survival, it's about alignment. And somewhere along the way, his talk and his presence stopped matching up. In a game that's all about presence, when the lights hit and the eyes are on you, you better hold the room. And in the moments that mattered most, Jim didn't. That's it for now. If you rocked with this breakdown, hit that like button, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories the industry doesn't want you to hear. This is CelebBeatz, and we'll see you in the next one.